What is up, my ducks and drakes? Welcome to the Crowded Lake, and today we're going to be reading Chapter 7 of A Lesson in Practicality by ResidentAnchor on Wattpad. If you'd like to support the fic or the author itself, go ahead and do that in the description below. With that being said, here is Chapter 7, How It Began. In his spare time, the random quiet cafe tucked away in the corners of the city were his favorite. Logan usually went with a book, one he read previously and didn't mind getting distracted from. His life had stagnated a bit, but the pattern was one he was comfortable with. A quiet corner and a small snack provided by the cafe, an hour or so of peace. He could duck away and hide his face when needed, but still observe the area around him. Some people had the same hobby, watching people go about their lives and just quietly observing. He just had to peek into what was hidden just underneath. Anytime someone came in and piqued his interest, in a way, Logan would observe and think of what had gotten them to this very spot at the same time. After years of quietly observing and quickly checking to see if he was right, had left the hobby more than dull. Most people thought about the same things. It would get stale and boring from time to time, however. There were moments when someone would stand out and give him a bit of a shock. It rarely happened anymore, but it was always interesting nonetheless. Being able to read mannerisms was never Logan's strong point. Someone would carry themselves with confidence, then be fighting a battle in their head. He could never quite get it right. The bell over the door jingled, and Logan waited for the person to walk into the cafe before looking up. He quickly looked back down in uninterest, glancing over the words in his book. People could be so easily read sometimes that a single look was enough. Laughter caused his eyes to flicker back up over the book. The newest patron had a grin on his face, and the cashier let out a laugh. He couldn't quite hear what was being said, but decided a second look wouldn't hurt. The man carried himself well, not quite with confidence, but seemed to dance in a spot whenever he got a smile or a laugh from the cashier. They could be about the same age, and they even wore similar glasses, but nothing truly remarkable stuck out. The ones who smiled the most usually carried the most pain, or something along those lines from his experience. Though as he carried on, the man continued to smile. Logan couldn't help but begin to wonder, was he having a good day, or could someone truly be that happy? It had been a boring visit, and they were the most interesting person he had seen all day. Logan checked around and held up his book, glancing at some pages more. He reached up and rubbed his eyes, covering his face. Just a quick scan would only take a few moments. He nearly dropped his book. Logan hunched in on himself a bit more and tried not to look up. Had he seen that right? The man split himself into two people that morning. Logan hadn't even bothered to take a second to check why or how. The thought never occurred to him. He sat up straight and looked over once more, the smile still on the man's face, who was completely unaware. Years of his silly habit, and somehow Logan had possibly crossed paths with someone just like him in the same city. He covered his eyes again and did another check. Patton seemed to live alone in a small studio apartment and could indeed make multiple copies of himself. He had to know more, or at least dig deeper. Logan's powers never worked on himself. It didn't make logical sense, but he had always wondered if his brain just worked differently than everyone else's. An autopsy on his own brain was physically impossible, so this was the first chance he got to test his theory. It took a bit, but he did seem to find something. But he wasn't sure what. Something metaphorically made this pattern stick out like a red dot on a thermal scan. He blinked away and looked up after hearing a noise, seeing the other leaving the cafe with a small bag and a drink in a hand. Logan pretended to be reading as the other left, their eyes never meeting. He wondered if he could scan the whole city bit by bit, now that he knew what he was looking for. Logan closed his book and casually gathered his things before walking out. He had research to do. It hadn't taken long as he scribbled in a small notepad that fit into his pocket. After knowing what he was looking for, he tried broadening his range and got on a bus and stretched the city. After a few rides, he had scribbled down some notes and had the people he could point out. Across the span of 2 weeks, Logan was certain he found the rest of those in the city who could be similar to him. It just took figuring out how to bring it up to them. One stood out from the rest, if only slightly. So after deliberation, Logan decided to, quote-unquote, accidentally run into them and start talking. Maybe some things could be pieced together. The next thing he knew, he was standing in the middle of the sidewalk, apologizing for bumping into a passerby and walking away confused. He remembered going somewhere to see someone, but couldn't remember who or what. He reached for the notepad in his back pocket and found it missing. He had been writing in it for 2 weeks, and without it, he wasn't sure he'd be able to remember absolutely everything he wrote. The other people, their names, and abilities. He at least was able to see what jotted down in that. Logan could only hope someone took it as notes for a novel or story someone could be writing. Most things could be written with a little hard work and wasn't worth the stress. The 4 other people in the city. 3 other? 4? He couldn't quite remember. He thought it was. Logan decided to rethink the entire plan with a bit of more caution. Are you sure you don't want me to come in and help, sweetie? Patton pulled the last bag out of the truck and turned to the driver. No thanks, Mom. I'll let you know when I'm settled in. Take your time, dear. Call me tonight. Patton grinned and closed the door, waving as the truck pulled away. He turned down at his few small boxes and frowned. The trip could be over in a few minutes if he had just absolutely promised he would just do it himself, and he was far too stubborn to even break a promise. He picked up a box and a bag and made his way inside. He was on his 3rd trip when he saw his mother drive by and wave. After she was out of view, Patton shook his head. His parents never did trust him sometimes. He made his way up the stairs and paused at every top. 3rd floor, and no help. He knew this was going to take a while. He walked out of the stairway and to the only door at the top leading to the apartment. Shuffling the box onto the floor, he checked where the spare key would have been put under the fake plant and found it missing. It was early. He wasn't the first here. He turned and knocked on the door, waiting for any noise. It took only a few seconds before it swung open and he was met with his first roommate. Hi, I'm Patton. You my new roommate? Patton smiled as the man stared back at him inquisitively. Oh, we have the same glasses, he pointed happily. It appears so. Salutations. I am Logan. He extended his hand and Patton took it happily. I've already moved into the room in the very back. Do you require assistance with your belongings? Patton waved a hand and reached down for his box. No need, bucko. I'll take care of it. He perked up and walked in. Oh, it really is all furnished. Wonderful. Patton spun around. So, anyone else here? Kinda thought I was going to be the first. You are the first to arrive beside me. Feel free to take any room you see fit. Patton walked to the nearest doorway and peeked in. I'll just take this one then. Thanks a pat ton. He walked in and placed his first box down. I'll be back with my other belongings. It took half an hour of running up and down the stairs, but Patton put all of his belongings in his room before he sat down on the couch for a rest. It seems you have finally finished moving in. Would you like a beverage? There is only water. I have not had a chance to shop for any groceries yet. You talk funny. I like it. Patton smiled up. A water would be great. Thanks, Logan. Logan nodded and entered the room with a glass, handing it to Patton. Thank you. So tell me, about you. I want to know more about my new roomies. Patton took a big gulp of water in sigh of relief. Oh, well, I am currently employed at a bookstore and maintain a healthy yet quiet lifestyle, I suppose. What about you, Patton? Patton put down a glass on the coaster and perked up. Well, that's not enough. Here, I'll start. I'm Patton. I work at the library as an assistant. It's a lot of organizing and computer work. I'm an only child, and I love cats and dogs. I'm allergic to cats, though. It breaks my heart when I see one and I can't pet it. Oh, I love to cook, so I'd love to help out when I can. That is certainly interesting. You said you work at a library? Do you enjoy reading? Oh, yes, I like to read the books to kids that come in all the time. Oh, there's this one book I read about someone's job as a dog catcher. It was so cute and sad. Somehow, I am not surprised. Logan sat up. I'm sure you have some unpacking to do, so I shall leave you to it. It was a few short hours of just the two of them, most of the noise being Patton's rummaging and humming as he set up his room. There was a loud thumping, and both people had come to investigate. Logan had just entered the room when the door swung open. I've been dreaming of a true love's kiss, the man sang, barging into the room. He froze and noticed he wasn't alone, placing down the boxes he had been carrying. Oh, well, hello there. I see I am not quite early enough. Nice to meet you. My name's Patton. Patton walked up and they shook hands. You've got one nice set of pipes there, kiddo. Ah, yes, thank you for noticing. I must admit it is a bit early and still before noon. I thought I would be the first one to arrive. He looked around at the living area. My name is Roman. Am I the last here? Logan approached and reached out for his hand. Greetings, I am Logan. We shall still be expecting one more person. I see. Well, which rooms are available? I've got quite a few trips ahead of me. Discovering one of the bigger rooms was still up for grabs, Roman immediately started moving his belongings with some help from Patton. Logan had announced he would go out and grab essentials so that they at least had some things in the fridge. Roman didn't sing much after his entrance, but did continue to hum to himself. Patton reassured him that at least while it's the two of them, he was okay with singing and started to join it. The day was overall quiet. Patton helped out and sorted his things while Roman unpacked as much as he could before the day was over. Logan, who had unpacked completely before Patton had even arrived, kept to his room as much as possible, despite buying groceries. Roman announced that moving in day was reserved for takeout and ordered pizza with a few complaints. Everyone was tucked away into their rooms for the night when the last person snuck in. The door hardly made a sound as he shuffled in with a duffel bag and little else. He snuck around quietly before Patton had surprised him. Oh, you must be the last roommate. He was practically dancing his spot. We all got here this morning. I'm Patton. Did you need help carrying anything? I can show you to your room if you want. Yeah, this is all I have. Just point me in the right direction. Patton walked up, waving him down the hall just past the kitchen. This is the last room left, so it's all yours. Patton opened the door and flung on the light, moving out of the way. Just let me know if you need anything, kiddo. The bathroom is the next door down. Right. Thanks. He hugged the duffel bag closer as Patton walked out, eagerly waving. He dropped the duffel bag to the ground and sat on the bed, humming with content as it bounced back comfortably. He immediately shut off the light and tried to sleep just before scrolling through his phone for the night. The next morning was a new beginning in Patton's eyes. He ran down to the store bright and early to arrive back and everyone was still asleep. He started on one big breakfast to celebrate his new roommates. He gave them space yesterday, besides the quiet one who ducked in last night, but he was determined to break them out of their shells. Patton giggled to himself as he cracked open an egg, laughing at his own joke. It didn't take long for the smell of breakfast to awaken the others. Logan was first, walking in, still quite tired, but dressing completely for the day. He blinked at Patton and the array of food spread on the table. It was nice of you to cook, Patton, but it's highly illogical to cook so much for the three of us. Patton spun around with a smile. Nope, the last little guy snuck in last night. I saw him. Figured a good breakfast was a great way to start out our new friendships. Logan headed for the coffee pot and grabbed a mug, freezing and staring into the closet. Would you happen to know which one of us brought in that mug? Patton walked over and peered inside. A big mug with "You've cat to be kitten me right, meow" was scrawled across it. Oh, that one would be mine. Isn't it perfect? Logan lifted a hand up to rub his eyes, fearful a headache was starting to form. I assume it fits your humor quite well, then. He focused back on the pot and muttered to himself. I'm going to regret all of this by the end of the week. What are you talking about over there? How much I'm going to regret all the coffee I will no doubt drink by the week's end. Logan never took his eyes off the coffee pot. Aw, come on. I'm sure we'll get along just great. That is still to be seen. We have hardly just met, and objectively it has been shown that throwing random strangers into a living space can hold negative effects. There are too many variables to be able to tell so soon. I just think it's too early to start doubting us. Besides, it's never a bad time to make friends. Patton looked over as Roman entered, still in his pajamas as he stretched. Roman, I made pancakes. Roman smiled at the sight. Ah, you're too kind. Patton, was it? Thank you. Thank you. See, Logan, we can be civil. Patton finished, adding the last pancake onto the stack and glancing down the hall. I'm just gonna check on him. He got in late last night, but breakfast is important. Oh, so he did arrive then? Roman questioned. All right, bring him out so I can see if I got struck with 3 nerds. What constitutes as a nerd, then? How would you identify one? Roman just looked up at Logan and stifled a laugh. You, for one, are a prime example, if I've ever seen one. Patton trotted down the hall and knocked on the bedroom door. Hey, you awake? He waited for a response before knocking once more. After a moment of silence, he bit his lip and debated with himself. Caving, he grabbed the doorknob and quietly pushed it open. It's getting late. You still asleep? Curled up on the bed with the back facing the door, Patton heard a groan cry out from the lump of blankets. Go away, Dad. He pulled the blankets closer to himself. If it's not noon, then leave me alone. Patton chuckled and started to close the door. Whatever you say, kiddo. The door clicked shut, and he shot up out of bed, looking around. This isn't my room. He blinked and remembered. He just moved in. I called my new roommate Dad. He covered his face and ran his hands across in frustration. Fantastic. Great job, Virgil Gold Star, for that one. He grabbed a pillow and buried his face in it. It wasn't too much longer before he convinced himself to get out of bed and make his way into the kitchen. Patton was humming to himself and cleaned while the few remains of his breakfast were sitting on the table. You're awake. I left you some breakfast. You just have to heat it up. Thanks. He tucked in the sleeves of his shirt. Pat, right? Name's Patton, but you could call me Dad. Patton smiled and laughed, seeing his new roommate's face flush and grow red. What's your name? Or do you prefer kiddo? Oh, sorry. It's Virgil. He cleared his throat and looked away. Sorry again about the whole Dad comment thing, he mumbled softly. Patton waved his hand and shrugged it off. No need to worry. We could just wash our hands of the situation. Virgil looked up at Patton, who smiled too brightly as he dried his hands. Dad jokes. Of course you do. Despite his words, Virgil had a smirk behind his hand. Virgil retreated to his room after finishing his breakfast and washing his plate. He decided to face the music, quite literally as it was coming from the living room, and meet his other roommates. Logan had been absorbed into an old worn book, and Roman and Patton were talking over the music that was playing. Roman noticed him enter and jumped in surprise. Well, it looks like the walking personification of emo from the last decade is our newest roommate. He leaned back on the couch. So you still post all your angsty poems on MySpace or what? "Aw, it's always nice to meet a fan." He walked in and leaned against the wall, keeping his distance. "What are you, a failed Disney prince reject?" "Excuse you!" Roman stood up and fixed his hair, posing dramatically. "I am an actual prince, thank you very much." "Whatever you say, Prince Hans." Roman scoffed and crossed his arms with a smirk. "You know Mr. tries to be edgy, likes the purity and goodness of Disney." "We must not be watching the same movies, because pure and good are not what I would call them." "You dare speak badly about my beloved Disney? Have you no shame, man?" "Oh, I'm sorry. Am I upsetting you?" Logan slammed his book closed and stood up. "There'll be enough out of you two, hardly 5 minutes at each other's throats. Childish." Pennant stood up and walked over. "Well, it's good to see you both are so passionate about the same thing." "I can hardly call immediately breaking out into a verbal disagreement talking passionately, Patton." Logan turned around to walk out of the room. "Please do not bother me, and keep the noise down." The sound of music coming from Roman's phone was the only noise in the room before he turned and shut it off, retreating to his own. Patton looked in dismay as they disappeared, eyes meeting Virgil's. "Hey, it's okay. Roman and Logan will come around. You'll see." The apartment kept quiet that afternoon, and the tension could still be felt in the air. Patton walked into the kitchen for a snack to find Logan placing something on the door of the fridge. "Ah, Patton, perfect timing." Logan took a step back. "I have made a chore chart, if you would like to try and keep things organized and civil around here. I didn't think it'd be necessary, but apparently I made the wrong assumption." "Oh, that's fine, Logan. I'm sure we're all just tired and getting used to things. We'll warm up to one another." Logan looked at Patton and pulled off his glasses. "How you remain so optimistic is a mystery to me. Not one am I entirely unthankful for, however." He pulled a cloth from his pocket and started wiping his lenses. "Aw, thanks, buddy. See, we're getting along just fine." Logan placed his glasses back on and turned to the hall to his room. "I would disagree. We seem to have varying differences, but in comparison to the others, yes, we are getting along better than the other two." Patton frowned as Logan walked out of the room and looked around the kitchen. Having 3 other roommates still left him feeling all too alone in the new apartment. The first week was anything but ideal. Patton tried keeping the peace, but Logan refused to leave his room for more than the bare essentials. Virgil was seen even less, only coming out to complain about the noise Roman was making down the hall. Roman would snark back and they would full-out argue before Patton separated them. However, Patton was an optimist and refused to give up too soon. "Family night!" Roman scoffed and turned away. "We aren't a family." "I figured we could watch movies or do karaoke. Doesn't that sound fun?" "Appeasing to my nature is a smart move, but you'll never get Jekyll and Hyde to agree to it." "If I can, would you join us?" Patton stood determined and stared down the other. Roman sighed and shrugged his shoulders. "Fine. If you can convince them that we can give it a shot. I have to agree to a movie, though. I doubt they'll want to sing. I mean, they've heard me. My voice is intimidating." Patton jumped up and hugged Roman, bouncing with energy. "Oh, this is perfect! Thank you!" He ran off, and Roman couldn't help but smirk back. Patton just had that energy about him. Patton headed for Virgil's room next. He was quiet, but they've managed to be civil the whole week before. Any time Patton talked to Logan, he was shot down immediately, and Roman would shrug him off from time to time. He didn't hesitate to knock and crack open the door. "Hey, Virgil, mind if I come in?" Sure." Virgil was on his bed with a bag and a pile of colored paper. What's up?" "I'm planning a night for us to hang out. I was thinking maybe watching a movie." Virgil ripped a piece of paper off and shoved it into the bag. "I think we just need to sit down and enjoy each other's company." We can't keep hiding from each other. Virgil finally glanced up and ripped the paper once more. You already pick out a movie? No, but I'm sure there's something we can all enjoy. Roman said he would join us, but he just has to agree on the choice. Virgil snorted out a laugh and shook his head. So, anything Disney then. It's most of what he listens to. I swear he blasts it just to annoy me. You don't like Disney? I do, but constantly having to hear it can get annoying, even if it's something you like. Virgil looked up timidly. You talked to Logan yet? Patton frowned and shook his head. I may have some trouble convincing him. We don't really get along. That's why I want us to try at least once. We'll never know otherwise. Patton watched Virgil rip the piece of paper a few more times. What exactly are you doing? I brought home some stuff, and I'm making confetti glitter bomb for the next time Roman gets on my nerves. He looked up with a smirk of pure mischief. Don't worry. I won't use it tonight. I'll save it for later. If that's the best I'll get, then okay. Now just have to convince Logan. No. Patton was met with the closing of a door, and he froze on the spot. He stood there silently for a moment before knocking on the door once more and was greeted by Logan's face. Patton, I'm not joining you all on some frivolous attempt to get along. Is there anything else you would need? But why not? Patton put a hand on the door as Logan made an attempt to close it once more. Just tell me why. Everyone else is willing to attempt to get along. Why not you? Patton, there's a infinitesimal amount of things I'd rather be doing than watching a movie with you three. Patton looked up completely baffled and raised an eyebrow. So that's a yes? You'll join us? What? No, that is not what I said. But, Patton pointed at Logan, infinitesimal means really, really small. So there wasn't really anything else you'd rather do. Logan jerked back in surprise and pulled out his phone. He quickly typed away and paled after a moment. I see. It seems I misused that word. How on earth did you know what it meant? Patton smiled and puffed his chest out proudly. I know big words too. You'd know more about me if you came out of your room and gave us a chance. Logan scoffed and rolled his eyes, looking back towards his desk. He peered back at Patton, and his shoulders fell in surrender. Fine. I will join you all on this silly quest to get along, if that's what it takes to get some peace and quiet around here. Yay! You won't regret it, Logan. Perhaps. Logan shut his door closed and smirked to himself. Perhaps I won't completely regret this. We shall see. Thank you so much for listening. And once again, if you'd like to support the fic or the author themselves, go ahead and do that with the link in the description below. If you'd like to support me, that subscribe button is just a click away, and hit that notification bell if you'd like to get notified when next week's episode drops. Thank you so much for listening, and much like Logan trying to piece his plan together, do your best.